Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Good, good. We've just been talking to Ronan Lagar, obviously, about the obvious in the Ireland squad. What is your sense of, does Joey Carberry, he obviously needs a bit of an arm around the shoulder now from Graham Rowntree. Is he going to get that in the shape of, is he going to start this weekend? That's what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, I presume he will start. I think it's obviously very disappointing for him, and it's going to be debated for a couple of weeks now before certainly be probably the rest of this week and the weekend and next week. A lot of people will be writing on us as well, and I think he just needs to. The best thing you can do when you're dropped is to get a performance, go out and play again, and try and put it behind you a little bit. Maybe it'll be the reaction that he needs. I think he's been playing pretty well this year with Munster. It's hard to kind of fault his performances and say he's been playing, well below par or anything like that. That's not the case, but I think it's more a case of Ross Byrne just playing really well and Jack Crowley. I think they obviously see something in Jack Crowley that's impresses them. I think his attitude, his physicality, and also Ross Byrne. He was probably written off after, a couple of years ago when he played against England a couple of times and Ireland's pack was dominated. So I think since, coming on for that 20 minutes against Australia in November and kicking that win penalty and obviously playing really well with Leinster has benefited him as well. So it's unfortunate for Joey Carberry. I do worry a little bit. It's going to affect him one way or the other here. To a reaction, or will it really dent his confidence and the perception of the player as well? And if he feels that perception, that becomes more vulnerable. But he's an outstandingly talented player, and we probably have spoken a lot about seeing that kind of full 80-minute performance from Joey Carberry and that bit of zip in his game that we know he has. So it's disappointing. I've experienced it a lot. I just listened to Ronan there. He probably didn't have to experience being dropped a lot. But it happens to players, and just look what happened. Gavin Coombs in November. He's a younger player, less experienced. Joey Carberry's 37 caps for Ireland. But I think you could also argue that are they all form selections? And I'm sure you're going to probably talk about Conor Murray and Keith Earls as well, and maybe Jacob Stockdale, that they're not form selections, but they're more gut selections from a coach, and a coach has to have the leeway to be able to do that. And you'll always get most coaches will do that, players they trust, and they look at the bigger picture of what they can bring. But for Joey Carberry, I really hope that it's a negative situation now for him, but he just needs to go now and play for Munster, and maybe it'll take a little bit of pressure off him.
Yeah, that's the key point almost that you made there. On one side, he can acknowledge what's going on, see what a pivotal moment it is in his career, and want to go out and, because it's such a big moment, almost force it too much. Like, it's hard to. Can you find a freedom, Quinny, or in your experience, did you find a freedom out of something like that, or did it tighten you up a bit?
The initial part of it, Adrian, is really tough and frustrating, because players will say and sports people will say, well, we don't listen to the outside world and we don't read the papers, but you feel all that kind of scenario and you feel the spotlight on you and you kind of go, what do my teammates think of me? Well, that's the way I thought of it. I was like, God, it's so difficult to take, and how am I going to react to it? And it's hard at times. But I think once you accept it, and I'm sure, Joe, you mentioned about Graham Rowntree offering him support, but it's also, Mike Prendergast, who he's back to coach in Munster, to look at what he can do better and how he can play with that bit of freedom. And I saw somewhere online someone making a comment, just a rugby supporter, saying that there's been a lot of talk about Joey Carberry for years, trying to get him more structured, and and kind of, maybe now that this will loosen him up a little bit, as you say, and make him just not overthink it and overanalyze it. So it can work both ways. You just don't know. But I think he does need a bit of support, and I tell you, the best support you can get is from teammates. Even a text message, players giving you a little tap on the shoulder and say, look, keep the head up. We still believe in you. You get back, and you start to rebuild yourself again. So it's disappointing, but the good thing for Joey Carberry is the World Cup is not for, not till September, and it can change very, very quickly. There can be an injury or two. He could be starting a Six Nations game by the end of it. Who knows? And one performance there just changes everything. So he's just got to keep believing, and the support is really important for him. So I think initially it's really tough to take, and you start questioning yourself, am I good enough? What do people around me, the players think of me? Do they trust me? Do they believe in me as well? So I think it's you've got to obviously feel a bit of pain, but going to Toulouse on Sunday isn't your ideal scenario for a bounce back solution. You know what I mean? Because it's a really tough place to go. But he's just got to try and focus and get his performance right, and hopefully the team play well. Munster out there as well from his point of view.
I suppose, Quinny, the most surprising thing that I took from it yesterday morning was that it wasn't a surprise for a lot of people. A lot of people saying, Ross Byrne and Jack Crowley are there on merit in Andy Farrell's squad. When you heard the news yesterday, were you surprised that Carberry hadn't made it?
I was surprised, and my first thought, Shane, was how will this affect the player? And we actually need Joey Carberry. That's what I'm thinking. Is there? It's a big call from Andy Farrell, but the other two players, and you've got to acknowledge this, they deserve to be there. I think. But my worry then is how will it affect Joey Carberry? He's not the most expressive, dominant, vocal player we see in a field. That's not the way he kind of goes about his business, or it's not his temperament. But I was surprised in a sense that, but when you peel it back then and you look at the merits of Jack Crowley and Ross Byrne, you think, well, we shouldn't be that surprised, because, I think Munster have had a really good run recently. I think they've won 6 of their last 8 games, and he's played pretty well in all those games. There's a mistake or two in there, and I think when you analyse probably Joey Carberry's game a little bit, there's a little bit of lateral running still in there, being square, going to the line and taking contact, and making some line breaks and going into the physical side of it hasn't been probably that zip and spark is we're still looking for it a little bit. He shows glimpses of it. So I was surprised in a sense that, but when you peel it back and you look at the logistics of it and the logic behind the selection, and look, that's probably, I know it's Andy Farrell's team, but Mike Catt as the backs coach would have a big say in the type of backs he wants and the type of game they're going to play and the attack they're going to implement. But he's just got to dust himself down. I keep saying that, and it's far from the end of the world. It's far from a disaster, I think. And this could, if dealt with in the right way, it could even galvanise more support for you sometimes from the fans. You know what I mean? If you come back and you have a game, you can nearly feel the crowd or support wanting you to do well again, because he's a very popular player with his teammates and with Irish rugby fans. But let's hope he gets a performance on Sunday and plays for Munster then probably the week after, and he's going to have lots of involvements now and gets back on track.
Yeah, and as you say, we'll have plenty of time to talk about the flip side of that, as well as the positive knock-on for Byrne and for Crowley as well down the track. We'll come back to it. One of the players who's been sort of ditched out, perhaps the Carberry thing, apart from anything else, is a good message and a reminder to everybody else in the squad about, like, you're guaranteed nothing here. Gavin Coombs is obviously one of those who's been through that, Quinny, in the last number of months, and then comes up with like a man of the match performance last weekend, gets included in the squad. I read a quote there from Sean Klein this week saying, comparing him to CJ Stander around his work rate and stuff like that. What has impressed you about Gavin Coombs most recently?
I just think more involvement in the game, and I think that's stuff he would have been working on with the coaches and the feedback you get when you do your analysis. He's an incredible athlete. He's 6'4" or 5", and probably 115 kilos, and powerful, and has pace and real footballing ability. I think more involvement in the game for him, and the more times you can get an athlete like that with the ball in their hands, the better. I think if you compare him to probably one of the best players in the world at the moment, in Caelan Doris, I think there's no reason why Gavin Coombs can't. It's a big ceiling because Doris has been outstanding, but if you watch Doris's game, it's just multiple backup moments all the time, tackles, turnovers to the breakdown, carries, offloads, regular involvements, and you want your number 8 with the ball in his hand a lot because he's a pivotal carrier for you. And I think Gavin Coombs has probably gone back to basics a little bit and just looked for more ball, probably got fitter and sharper in what he's doing. Scores a lot of tries. A lot of these tries are pick and goes because he's very difficult to defend. So that's one of his strengths. You wanted to keep building on that. And if you get close to the line with any team Gavin Coombs is on, you want him picking. So
is he making a World Cup squad?
It depends. I think he's definitely in the mix. He's definitely right up there, and he's giving himself a real shot here. But I think he's got to bring a little bit more of an aggressive kind of temperament to his game, a little bit of no nonsense, and a bit of kind of body language that indicates he's not going to take any rubbish or crap from anyone, and that he's going to be explosive in his defensive work and his carries. So look, I think he has that ability to really, for his game to grow more and more. But you have to, as a background, particularly, I don't think it's ever changed, but in more so in the modern game, you've got to have multiple successive involvements and regular involvements because, obviously playing in the back row and watching back row players, they can really influence games in such a positive way for your team by pressurizing the opposition, making tackles, turnovers. And then the flip side of that, if you have your back row making lots and lots of carries in a game, well, you're usually in a good place and you're usually in a position to be winning games. So I say it again, just Doris, the influence he has in games and the special moments he has. Gavin Coombs has that ability. It just needs to, and they're different players. I don't want to sound unfair and say Gavin Coombs has to be like excuse me, Caelan Doris, spot on like him. He doesn't. He just needs to, obviously, I think he has an ability to be, an incredible ball carrier on wider channels as well. If he runs onto the ball at pace, and he's a very difficult player to stop. So it's a big opportunity for him. He needs to train well, and he needs to train with a bit of an attitude and actually not be in the Irish squad saying, well, look, I'm nice and comfortable here in the back row, selected, and he needs to fight for a place here and make his presence felt in training as well.
Must be tough for players, Quinny, who are on the outside of the squad or the fringes of the squad, wondering, does Andy Farrell want form, or does he want, players who have that experience? Because you mentioned the likes of Stockdale, and he really has been quite poor of late for Ulster. I know there's been injuries that have hampered him as well, but I mean, players on the fringe of that squad must be looking in going, how did some of these lads get in? When I'm playing really well for my province, I'd say it's frustrating for some players.
So you could argue, Shane, and it's a good point, that some players could pick up the phone and say, well, there's certain guys in the squad that I don't think they're playing well in the last few weeks. And, I've sat down with coaches over the years and said, well, why aren't you starting me? I'm playing well and the guys ahead of me are not. their form isn't brilliant at this particular moment, not consistently, because obviously you're not going to be in an Irish squad if you're not a good player and if you're not able to deliver at international level. Unless sometimes we see the young players coming in for a period of time and they need to, go back to their provinces and play more and gain more experience and develop more. But yeah, and he'll know that, Andy Farrell. But I think there's no incredible notable omission here that somebody is not in the squad that could be doing that situation, that has a really, really, really strong argument. I think Kieran Treadwell and Nick Timoney can feel a little bit unfortunate. They would be disappointed, obviously, but it does go back to your provincial team and how they're playing as well, and collectively. I think he's looked at Jacob Stockdale and seen that he's probably gone with a gut feeling there, and when this player has an ability to, score brilliant tries, he's delivered before. He was outstanding in 2018, scoring tries for Ireland. An incredible year it was, and he was pivotal in that. Recently, we haven't seen that spark from Jacob Stockdale. So I think it's trying to give the player a chance and a shot of confidence as well that he's brought back in there. And the coaches do need, whether we as players agree or not, or the fans agree or not, they need to have leeway to go with their gut in some decisions. And it can be hard for other players. Kieran Treadwell is left out of the squad. He was a very important player in New Zealand, and he's not in the squad now. Ian Henderson is back. Joe McCarthy is in there. James Ryan and Tyburn, they're the locks. So Caelan Blade could be arguing, saying, well, if it's picked on form, why am I not in the squad? And I should be in the squad. And Conor Murray hasn't played much lately, and he's not been picked by Munster now. So there's a couple of arguments in there. There's no doubt about it. Jordan Larmour being back in the squad is a form selection. Obviously, it's one that jumps out. It's brilliant to have him back. Because when you look at all our back three players, I think, and that's maybe benefited Jacob Stockdale. There's, particularly in the wing situation, there's the depth there, and the amount of players that you can select from isn't kind of jumping off the page. Mike Haley can feel a little bit unfortunate, but I still think he has their attention, and I think he's played very well for Munster. Everybody would acknowledge that. And he may still be a shot for a World Cup. The time is running out for guys who are outside the picture here, who haven't played in a while, because you have 3 warm-up games. I think one of them is after the squad has been picked. You have 5 Six Nations games. So it's a very strong squad, and it's a squad that I think, by and large, 99% of it, is picked. And with players who can deliver performances, but it's still, the World Cup is where we want to see performances in the form. I still think they'll obviously want to do well in the Six Nations, but we're all a bit sceptical and a little bit nervous, particularly what happened in 2019. So it's tough for some players, but it's an exciting kind of journey now in the next few months. And I would say the door is not closed on anyone. And I know coaches say that, but I think for players who are not in it, the Ulster players, those guys, they've got to go out and perform and try and get their team winning again. Yeah,
well, if Carbery goes down and has a man of the match performance on Sunday, suddenly everybody's the clamour is back on again, and we'll see exactly how that plays out. But as you say, look, there's 14 players to come out of that for a match day squad alone, not to mind a World Cup. And when Henshaw comes back, there'll be 5 of those players that won't even be included in the reduced World Cup squad. So plenty for us to get our teeth in over the next few months. Anyway, Quinny, just talk to us a little bit about Sunday. No Jack O'Donoghue, of course, suspended, and clearly missed out in the Ireland squad. 9 points from 3 games from Munster, 6th in the pool, top 8 to go through. The connotations we're not sure about, but they'll know what they have to do before kick-off in that game. Unthinkable that Munster wouldn't go through. They need it.
Yeah, they need to go through. I wouldn't say it's unthinkable, because I think they probably the expectation has shifted this year, particularly with the start of the season they've had, and nobody expects Munster to go and win the European Cup. I think being in the knockout stages would be really important for them. We've seen from the reports, RG Snyman is back training. What a boost he would have. That would be for Munster to have him back, to have a Dogbo back training, Thomas Ahern, Finian Wycherley, to get some of those powerful, a little bit more power back in the squad come the knockout stage. And I think, the way they're playing and the way they're developing, I think they'd make it difficult for somebody. Most probably they'll be away if they get through. They're going to be down in that 6th, 7th, 8th position if they get through. But I think the results that they need Stormers to beat Clermont because that'll push them down. Clermont are on 6 points and they're away to Stormers. If Sale were to beat Ulster with a bonus point, they could go to 10 points. So there's a couple of results there. The Montpellier London Irish game, Montpellier on 7 points. They've got London Irish at home, so you expect them. They're going to get probably 4 to 5 points there and go up. So I think there's just a couple of results there that could push Munster out of it. It could happen, and we've seen stranger things in this situation a number of times over the years when you get to the last European game. But they will know what they've got to do. But I expect Toulouse, who are top of the pile, they'll want to finish top. And they'll pick a strong team. They always do. And, they're pretty ruthless as well. So it's a pretty daunting task for them. But Munster will know what they have to do. And maybe it will suit them a little, this game, that they can just throw caution to the wind a little bit, which may help them. But, they may need a losing bonus point here. It may be the situation. And that's probably the advantage that they'll know. But they've just got to go for it, but it's going to be very, very difficult to beat Toulouse out there. Ulster did it last year when Malia Cruz was sent off for Toulouse, and it made it probably an easier situation. Ulster were hanging on right at the end of the game, and obviously in the return fixture they came back and beat them in Belfast, which cost Ulster. So you'd never know. But I think I would worry about the power, because you're playing one of the most physical sides in Europe and away from home. But let's see where Munster are at. I think their confidence and their self-belief has increased a lot.
Leinster Racing obviously tomorrow afternoon at the Aviva, and Leinster looking to nail home advantage for all the knockout stages if they can manage a win there, and Racing hanging on after beating Quins at the weekend and still in the hunt then for the last 16. And I mean, we've spent a lot of the morning obviously talking about Joey Carberry, and I think that's legitimate for the day that's in it. We'll spend a lot more time talking about Ross Byrne and on, but I'm sure he's got a real pep in his step now, Quinny, and a real sort of chest out, and been backed by all around him, sure, getting loads of plaudits, pats on the back, and a big opportunity for him now as well to put a stamp on this one. It'll be a lot of focus on him.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And when I played for Munster for when we were successful winning European Cups, I think we had 16, 17, 18, 19 Munster guys in Irish squads consistently. Leinster have 20 guys in this squad. So this is there's huge kudos in that as well, going into training, seeing 20 guys from your team that are in the national squad. There's a lot of pride in that, and I think they all will have a spring in their step. And for Ross Byrne, yeah, of course, he's going to be delighted. He's back from the wilderness a little bit, and it's a real confidence booster and a perception changer for him as well. So, they've been absolutely ruthless this year, to get 3 bonus point wins. And the manner in which they've won the games, you could debate the opposition, particularly the Gloucester game. The team they sent over in December was pretty shocking, to be honest, but understandable in the sense that they were probably going to be beaten anyway. But I think the performance in round 1 against Racing over there just highlighted the difference here with this Leinster squad and their ability to play, their skill levels, the pace, the tempo, the fitness levels. So I think it's really, this competition is theirs to lose at this stage. They're going to be at home all the way to the final. So it's going to take a special performance for someone to beat them. I don't think Racing are going to. Racing are on 8 in Pool A and 5 points. I don't think they're going to get anything out of this game, and possibly won't make the knockout stages. The advantage for them is the teams behind them are pretty abysmal as well. Gloucester are behind them, Leon on 5 points, and Leon are on 3 points. So Racing could miss out on the knockout stages themselves here. So I think Leinster will just probably take it to another level, given the game is on the Aviva as well. And as I said, they'll be full of confidence and joy this week. That 20.
Breaking up a small bit there, Quinny. I think we might have lost you. Are you with us? You're there. You're back. Give us just very briefly, if you can. Obviously, with Ulster up against Sale, obviously as well tomorrow night. So the Leinster game, the Ulster game, and the Munster game. You're not. It doesn't sound like you're talking about 3 Irish wins there.
Situation for Ulster playing at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and there'll be a bit of anger, a bit of bite in what they're trying to do, and they're playing for possibly get into the knockout stages. They're only on 3 points, so a bonus point win is a must for them. So I think Ulster will win the game. I think Leinster will obviously beat Racing, and you never know what happens in Toulouse, but you'd have to say that Toulouse are going to be very, very difficult to stop and will most probably beat Munster. But I have a feeling Munster could cause them a few problems and maybe get something and score some tries when they're there.
All right, let's see how it goes. Quinny, thanks a million. Enjoy the games.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.